I'm not above crawling on one if he's locked down in the right spot or whatever. You know what I mean? If I can see him. But you're going to be there for a while doing that because it's going to take, you're going to have to move slow. And then you got to worry about all them stupid little bucks that's going to circle, be 70, 80 yards downwind of them all the time. It seems like about 60 yards is a buck's comfort zone. You get closer to 60 yards, you're about to beat the wrath.
What was the learning curve for you to start hunting the lockdown period? Like, how long did it take you to start building some confidence doing what you're doing now?
Watching deer out of trees down, and how he had the doe in there, and how 6 hours went by, and they moved 50, 60 yards in that thicket. But I seen him like he rubbed every stinking tree in there, scraping. And anytime, and you know, ain't it amazing how like you can go from seeing no buck deer to like all of a sudden there's 15 or 20 on you in one day, you know, just because there's a right doe there. But I seen him, he come out of that thicket. He scooped up about a 140 and run with him and turned him sideways and flipped him. And then there was like 3 15-inch bucks that was around him, you know, and he'd be on one side of that door or another, just circling like this. And then if that one deer was the only deer that come in and actually tried him, the rest of them just hanging out in there. And I finally was like, I got to make a move on this deer. I'm not going to kill him from here, you know, and there's a slough there. I get down. And, dude, I was like 50 yards from him. No worries in the world. And there was a little 10-point come in that hadn't been there. Cruised right in on me, and I'm looking at them, and he busts me and blows, and everything goes to the woods in. But, yeah, watching deer. Deer teach you everything you need to know if you just pay enough attention to them. You know what I mean? That's your teacher. The more you learn from them, I mean, people can give you, if you believe them and you listen to what they say, people will give you a good step toward what to do if they've got the knowledge. But when you get in the woods and you see the deer and you actually see them, what they do and how they act, and thinking, man, look at all the sign he's laid down in there. How many times have I seen that? You know, I walked up on that in the woods, and then, you know, are they doing the same thing? Are they going to keep doing it? You know what I mean? And I have found lockdown time where I was just a little late on. You know, I'd sit up in there and hunt for a day or two and never see a deer. But that's life. You're going to do that if you're hunting, and especially in public, you know, in Arkansas for sure.
While we're staying on the lockdown aspect of it, if you find some of that sign that you feel super confident in, again, you're finding the feed sign, some doe sign, along with big rubs, scrapes, everything's just tore up all around this location. And maybe there's some thick cover close by, or it's kind of in the edge of some thick cover. How many days will you give that spot? Like, say you find in the afternoon, you're scouting between 10 and 2, you find it, you know, 1:30, like, I'm hunting this. If you don't see anything that evening, will you come back the next morning?
I'd give it a couple days.
Okay.
I would give it to, I mean, of course, I know a lot of guys don't have a lot of time to hunt, but if you get on something that you think's worth something, sometimes it don't happen. I mean, especially if you can't see good in there. He could be over here. A lot of times you might hear him grunting, chasing her around over here, and you never see him. But, you know, you still, there's things that makes you know that he's there. You know what I mean? You hear him grunt, you hear a little crashing, that big old long grunt, how it changes tones in the middle, where you know he's chasing, you know, and yeah.
I found a sound like this last year when y'all were in on that backpack hunt. Where I found that spot's exactly like Benji. But I'll think about it. I found sign now reanalyzing a hunt from last year where you're talking about that lockdown sign, like you find feed sign, but you're finding destroyed buck sign all around it. I found that last year hunting some more mountainous stuff that we hunt in Alabama, and got in there and ended up bumping. Gosh dang, that's exactly what happened. I bumped 2 bucks walking in on this little ridge point right before I got to all that sign. One was a little buck, one was if he would have stopped, he probably would have got shot with a rifle. I only saw him a little bit, but I was going to ground check that deer. And then it ended up calling in another buck later in the afternoon. I ended up sitting just above that sign. It was kind of the head of a draw and had big scrapes in it. And we have a lot of like mountain laurel in Alabama, this green waxy plant's real hard to tear up. And it was just snapped to pieces. Right here around there's some oaks, some red oaks were dropping. And I heard a buck later that afternoon. Let out this obnoxious, almost like a buck roar, and you could hear it chasing up above me. Ended up having a deer right at dark come in from below me. I couldn't see, and ended up busting me. But it was that kind of location, but it was in the hill country. It wasn't in the bottoms, but just like what you're saying. I need to start paying more attention to that this coming season. So
I'll show you a video of the deer that was hanging out in there when he was there. It's a stud.
yeah, it's a real good deer. But so you'll give a spot a couple days if you think it's worth it. At what point again would you give up on it though? Like when the sign dries up, or
Well, it just depends. I mean, if a deer's locking a deer down, you're on a time crunch anyway. He's only going. I'm going to say trail around. That's my opinion. From 3 to up to a week. I've seen same buck on a doe for a week, but 3 days, day to 7 days. Okay, say. And like I said, if you hunt it 2 days in there and you hadn't seen no sign or heard him or anything that makes you think, or satellite bucks, they're a key giveaway on a big buck like that because they're right there hanging on the edges. Well, you see them on the edges, you think he's in there. He's got the doe in there.
I'm squirming so bad because that's literally what I ran into last year. Okay, so walk me through when you start seeing the satellite bucks, and I've only had this happen a few times, but last year's a great example. When you start seeing those satellite bucks, like especially the ones I've bumped, like they bump, they'll run off a little bit, and they're looking, but they don't really want to leave all that much.
Yeah.
When you start seeing that, how do you analyze in your head? Like clearly, there's a buck locked down with a doe in here, probably a pretty good deer. How do you try to proceed forward, or especially if you're walking to the wind you're bumping, clearly they're downwind of that buck and that doe. What's going through your mind? How do you play that out?
Well, that at that point you just got to stop and see if you can find him and her, binoculars or whatever, glasses, and just come in the woods over and see if there's a place where you move on them, or if you got to, I'm not above crawling on one if he's locked down in the right spot or whatever. You know what I mean? If I can see them, but you're going to be there for a while doing that because it's going to take, you're going to have to move slow. And then you got to worry about all them stupid little bucks that's going to circle, be 70, 80 yards downwind of them all the time. It seems like about 60 yards is a buck's comfort zone. You get closer to 60 yards, you're about to beat the wrath. You know what I mean? When they, like 60, he's at full alert and he's coming, he's postured up. You get beyond 40 and he's coming out to get you. You know what I mean? Is what I've seen on them. And I've seen several of them locked down, in Arkansas and other places too. Other places it seems like, I don't know, when they lock a deer down like in the Midwest, it's like, it's weird up there. It's like they don't want to move within 40 or 50 yards. They want to stay like right there. You know what I mean? It's like they don't want to go anywhere. It's a little different here. They'll still move to feed. They'll move, but it's not going to be far. It's going to be, I'd say, 200-300 yard circle right there. And like I said, usually everything, this is another key thing you need to think about. Everything they need's right there. They got water. They got food. They got cover. And they got a big opening to one side where he can watch. He can lock her down in here and still watch all this area like this. And usually the wind plays a factor in there too.
Yeah. Gosh.
Man, this gets me fired up.
It does get me fired up because now I'm like, okay, well, it gives me also an opportunity that when you start hunting during the rut, or especially, any point during the rut, and you start having those slow days, is another good reason to get out and start walking some more.
Yeah, well, I'm a firm believer if you're not seeing what you want, you need to get out, quit being lazy, get out of the tree, get on the ground.
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of people hate the lockdown so much is because they're still hunting those funnels. They're still hunting those big rut funnels, and then it just dries up, and they're like, well, it's just going to suck for a week and a half, 2 weeks, and then it'll pick back up there at the end when most of those does get bred. And
I can't go that long without seeing bucks. I mean, every day I climb a tree, I'm seeing deer usually. I mean, bucks like these at least. And if I ain't seeing a big buck about a week, I'm hurting. I like to see at least one good, sure enough, 140 or up a week. You know what I mean? Try to make a move on him, something.
Yeah. Also, how long of a period of time generally, like, will you try to focus on that lockdown phase? Like, is it like I've got 2 weeks to like find different bucks locked down, and then it's like back to doe fawns and
It's usually the month of November for me.
okay,
Because that's when the majority of your deer's coming into heat. That's when like every doe in the woods, it's like every buck in the woods has got his piece of the action. If he's a 2-year-old or up, even the spikes and the little bucks are in on it too. Then it seems like everybody's got their piece of the action. So that the big bucks is in there with something. You know what I mean? If you really want to dive into it, you really want to think about it. It seems like a big buck always locks the doe down. In my opinion, this is my humble opinion, guys. It's going to be on the edge of a lake. It's going to be on the edge of a river. There's cane thickets. There's something, treetops, blow down, something like that. Real thick. Like where I killed this particular buck, there's a slough that had water in it running all the way out to the river, right? The riverbank was caney. That's where they came off of. There's a four-wheeler trail goes right. Those deer was laying within 15 yards of that four-wheeler trail, I guarantee you. When they come up off that riverbank and then come into me, coming down that other. But the reason he liked to let her feed right there is because there's water on one side. He didn't have to worry about something getting to her that way without him hearing it, right? So he could look all the way out. There was like 3 sloughs come together, and he could see 200 or 300 yards down those sloughs. And he stayed out kind of in the open while she was in there feeding. And he taught me a lot on what to look for. But every one I've seen since then, it's kind of the same scenario. That's what made me put together everything they need will be right there. There's food, water, thick cover, and opening where he could see any wind direction he could play there on predominant wind, the north or south. He could have played right there at the same spot.